In the radio business, there's nothing worse than extended periods of silence, because without communication, you can't connect. There's no community. You have nothing. How ironic that during the roughest patch of my life, a friend and colleague was miserable too. And neither of us had a clue what was going on with the other.
The degree to which I went to keep my colleagues, you included, from knowing what was going on in my life was incredible. And it was tiring.
The guy whose voice you just heard is Jeff Bell. He was an anchor in Sacramento when I was a reporter. He was professional, respected, always on an even keel. It would have never crossed my mind to reach out to him a couple years later when, at my dream job in San Francisco, I started having panic attacks prior to every in-studio live report. No one heard it, no one saw it, but to quote a line from C.S. Lewis, I felt like an ant in the mouth of a furnace. Meantime, while I couldn't stand being in studio, Jeff was across town, now at a competing station, fearful of going out on a story, because every time he'd hit a pothole or his news van would rattle, he'd have to circle back half a dozen times, thinking surely he'd killed someone. How bad did it get?
Ultimately, unbeknownst to my bosses, I started taking that KCBS news van out of the parking structure so that there would at least be an appearance of doing my job as a normal reporter would, parking that car around the corner, hailing a taxi cab, and taking a taxi cab out to a breaking news story.
For me, it took a full year of being miserable daily before I told a coworker and then my bosses. Lo and behold, I wasn't fired. I wasn't even alone. At least one other person at the station had been through the exact same thing. For Jeff, the silence about obsessive compulsive disorder ended after he picked up a book entitled The Boy Who Couldn't Stop Washing.
And the very first chapter in that book is about a guy who drives down a freeway and is concerned that he's causing accidents along the way and loops his car back to make sure that he hasn't, in fact, left a trail of dead bodies. That was something I had been doing for years. And when I read that, I kid you not, Kevin, my first reaction was, I don't remember writing a book. It was that uncanny.
As Jeff and I have since discussed, breaking the silence about whatever you're dealing with is so powerful, sometimes to the person speaking, sometimes to the listener.
Transparency was a way for me to address that when I was able to find first one other individual with OCD that I could share with, be completely transparent with. It made a huge difference in my life.
Eventually, Jeff even spoke out publicly, something that's admittedly not for everyone. He put it all down in a memoir.
I imagine myself opening a door to a room, turning on a light, and being greeted by a bunch of monsters. And I don't even know exactly what that meant, but that was sort of the image I had. And instead, what happened when I flipped that light switch on was that there was this amazing group of people out there, all of whom had their arms wide open and essentially said, welcome.
When I look back, I hate that I might have had the power to unburden Jeff when we worked together, because we're not all that different.
We could have been great resources for one another.
But there are still opportunities all around.
When I'm having a bad day, and I still have my bad days, I will remind myself that the best thing I can do at that juncture is to find somebody else out there who's hurting a little bit more than me and try to do something to reach out to them and be of service to them. It's more than a cliche. We help ourselves by helping others.